Assalamu alaikum. The topic for today is classification of goods and services. We will talk about free goods, private goods, public goods, merit goods, and demerit goods. So, economists have classified goods and services into free and private goods. Free goods are those goods that are naturally abundant and are free for everybody to use. Also, everybody can use it freely as they are in abundance. Another definition of free good is a good which does not require any resources to be manufactured, such as air. There are other goods and services that are called economic goods or private goods because they require resources or factors of production to be manufactured, and they are not free for everybody to use. People have to pay for them, and then we will get to know about other categories of goods which are called public goods, which are slightly different from private goods. Public and private goods both they require resources to be manufactured. For a private goods, they are manufactured using factors of production and people have to pay for it if they want to consume it. Okay. There are two factors based on which we can classify the good or service as public or private. Number one is exclusivity, other one is rivalry. What is exclusivity? A good can be deemed as exclusable if other consumers cannot be prevented from consuming it or using it. The example is road. Another example is public park. Another example is defense, national defense. A good is rival if only one person can consume it and it reduces the chances for other people to further consume it. Rival means suppose there are 10 units of a certain thing and one of them is sold. Now only 9 people can use it further, and when all 10 units are sold and it has not been manufactured further, then nobody else will get a chance to use it. Example, lunchtime meal or pair of trainers. Most goods are rivalrous. A good is non-rival when the amount available to other does not diminish and everybody gets an equal chance, or everybody keeps getting chances to use it again and again. A good which is non-excludable and non-rival is called a public good, right? It's public good. For example, national defense. A good which is excludable and rival in nature is called a private good. Excludable, why? You can prevent others who do not pay for it from using the product, and if there is a limited amount manufactured, once all the amount is sold, then nobody else will be able to buy it. So it's rival and excludable in nature. For example, a chocolate bar. A good which is excludable but non-rival, or non-excludable but rival, is called a quasi-public good. What is a quasi-public good? We are going to study this in just a while, right? An example can be cable television and a public park. So let's study in detail about all these kinds of goods. What is a private good? Private good is manufactured using factors of production. They cost money in their manufacture and companies require money to sell it. When they sell it, they do not give it away to anybody for free. This applies to most of the goods and services we are likely to consume regularly, such as food items, drinks, clothing, household goods, and petrol. Private goods are excludable and rival in nature. That is, you can prevent anybody from consuming it if they don't pay for it, and there is a limited quantity available. A question here arises, so what? People keep restocking? Yes, but when they stop restocking, it will not be available to any further people, even if they have the capacity or willingness to pay for it. Whenever we are talking about any kinds of goods and services, I'm again and again repeating excludability and rivalry, because these are the aspects you are going to discuss in the exam whenever you are talking about public, private, free and quasi-public goods and services. Then we have public goods. Public goods are non-excludable and non-rival in nature. Once they are produced, it's impossible to prevent others who haven't paid for it from using it. For example, roads. Roads are manufactured using tax money. Even if somebody is not paying taxes, the government cannot stop them from using the road. Another example of public good is fire protection, police force, national security, street lighting, traffic lights and flood control system. These goods, they benefit public in general and at large. Nobody can be excluded from using it, and it doesn't mean that if you, I or other people who are paying taxes are using the road, then the chances or opportunity for others to use the road will reduce. That's not the case. Therefore, they are non-excludable and non-rival in nature. Public goods are normally provided by the government. Is the government bound to provide public goods? Not exactly. We wouldn't say that the government is bound to provide public goods, but there is no incentive for the private sector to provide public goods, because there are issues associated with public goods. What are those issues? Let's have a look at them. The issues associated are: number one, the free rider problem. What is the free rider problem? Free rider problem means that when people enjoy benefits of a public good without having paid for it, and in other words, they take a free ride even if somebody hasn't paid for it. For example, if people don't pay taxes, they still get to enjoy national defense, they still get to enjoy public parks, they still get to enjoy all the public goods that are provided by the government. Secondly, public goods are there to benefit public at large. If they become rival and excludable in nature, then it's not going to benefit public at large. Public goods are manufactured solely to provide bigger benefits to the society, and they will lead to more aggregate or collective benefit to the society. For that purposes, the prices should be low, or there should be no prices at all. Private sector does not have any such any incentive to produce any such good which they have to give away for free. That will lead to inefficiencies. Inefficiencies means improper allocation of resources. They will be allocating resources to something which will not be generating any profits and benefits for them, and eventually the private sector would have to close down. Who is the private sector? Firms that are not part of government, that's a private sector. Their aim is profit maximization, so they cannot work on anything that attempts to maximize welfare rather than their profit. So the private sector does not have any incentive to produce a public good, also because of the free rider problem. So it is argued that the government should be providing public goods. However, there is there's a divide between the economists. Some of them, they support the idea that government should provide public goods, and others do not support the idea of government providing public goods. One says that there will be inefficiencies if the government starts providing it, and other says that there will be inefficiencies if the government stops providing it. Right? Okay, these are the questions. Why the private sector has no motive to produce public goods? Because of the non-excludable and non-rival nature of public goods. For example, if the private sector starts producing street lights, Anyone could benefit from the illumination regardless of whether they contribute towards the cost, making it hard for the company to recover its investment through direct payment. It means that the government needs to be involved. Due to the free rider problem, basically, market alone cannot efficiently provide public goods, necessitating government intervention to fund and regulate the provision. Therefore, we can answer this question very clearly: why government needs to provide public goods. If the government does not provide public goods, there will be market failure, and if inefficiencies, as the free rider problem prevents the public sector from providing public goods and services, as public goods when provided freely to people will not allow them to cover their costs. Moving to quasi public goods. What is a quasi public good and why is it and how is it different from a normal public good? It's a type of a public good that can be partially excluded and can be partially rival. It can either be non-excludable and rival, or it can be non-rival and excludable. It cannot be non in both cases, and it cannot be without non in both cases, because then it either becomes a public good, completely public good, or it becomes a private good. They have characteristics of both public and private goods, and examples include clean air. The quality of clean air decreases as most people use it, but you cannot prevent anybody from using it. So it's non-excludable but rival in nature. Roads can be used by many people, but congestion can reduce the benefit to others. So non-excludable but rival. Bridges can become congested if too many people want to use them at the same time. Again, non-excludable but rival. How does it differ from public goods? Public goods are fully non-rival and non-excludable, whereas quasi-public goods can be either non-rival or non-excludable, but not non in both cases. Right? How are they funded? They are funded by a combination of government revenues, which are taxes, and user fees like the toll tax. Road can be semi non-excludable through the use of tolls, right? And how does a quasi-public good differ from private goods? Quasi-public goods have characteristics of both private and public, but it's not completely private, it's not completely public. The next type of goods that we are going to study are merit goods. The word merit in itself means something which is good. Goods, here we are talking about goods that we manufactured, consumer goods or consumer services, anything, something that we use. Merit goods, goods that are good for society at large, or which bring benefit to the individuals consuming it and to the society at large. Merit goods, they generate positive externality. Positive externality is a benefit that is received by the person not directly involved in manufacturing, selling and use of any good or service. For example, vaccination. Vaccination is a merit good. If somebody who has contracted a disease gets a vaccination, they give benefit to people who haven't taken that vaccination. How? They do not become the carrier of the disease, and thus they protect others from catching that disease. So merit goods are goods which are good for the society at large, but they are underconsumed. Let's have a look at why they are underconsumed. In a free market, individuals may not consume merit goods in optimal quantities for reasons such as information failure or less production. There is government intervention when it comes to merit goods, because when something is underconsumed, there is a possibility that it's underprovided as well. Once we examine why there is under provision, then we will see why the government needs to intervene. Examples of merit goods include education, public transportation, healthcare, medical examination, certain forms of assistance, minimum education, etc. As I said, that underconsumption of merit good may be a product or a consequence of information failure or imperfect information. What is imperfect information? Imperfect information refers to a situation where consumers do not have complete or accurate knowledge about a product or service, leading to potentially suboptimal decisions. And in the context of merit good, this often results in underconsumption. But what do we mean by imperfect information, inaccurate or incomplete information? For example, what are the programs that offer scholarship to deserving students? If people have no knowledge or less knowledge about these programs, less people who actually need scholarships will be educated. So this is underconsumption of a merit good, which is education. Suboptimal means if it's used in a quantity that is desired by the society, then the benefits would be huge. But if it's not consumed according to the need of the society and it's underconsumed, that's suboptimal, right? Information asymmetry. When consumers lack full information about true benefits of a merit good, they may not value it enough to purchase it at a level considered optimal by the society. A very good practical example of this is during COVID, the government advertised CAC 1000 supplement, which is a calcium supplement that has been around for more than 20 years, because I have seen this supplement since I was a child, like I was in my teens. That is a calcium supplement. Everybody has always known that calcium is good for bones, but during COVID, there were awareness campaigns which inform people that calcium is good for bones, and if they consume optimal amount of calcium per day, it may improve their immunity and help their bodies fight COVID and help their bones from deteriorating before time. There was a huge increase in sales of CAC 1000 and everybody was seen consuming this. So this product had been around for very long. It has been beneficial for as long as I remember, and right from the time when it was manufactured, but people had less information about it. Like very few people knew that calcium can help you improve your immunity. There was lack of awareness or lack of information or improper information, because of which people were under consuming this merit good. Why it's a merit good? Because it's inexpensive, number one. Secondly, it benefits the society at large by preserving health of the workforce for longer. What is the government intervention to address underconsumption? Number one, public awareness campaigns. These campaigns do not have any return for the government in form of money, but if it helps preserve their workforce, for example, or improve their workforce, for example, if this campaign is about scholarship programs and more population gets educated, it's going to benefit the government and the workforce at large. So that is why government improves awareness. It gives benefit to the private sector whose goods and services are sold, and in return government gets good taxes. So it's a win-win situation. Number two, subsidies and price controls. Education is subsidized in many countries around the globe, but here in Pakistan also education is subsidized. How? In government universities, you get to study bachelor's and even master's at a very low price. I have done both my masters from a private university and the costs were huge, though I didn't have to pay a lot of money because I was on scholarship in both masters. But others who were paying it, they were paying huge amounts every semester. But government university where I had studied for 1 year, I noticed a very significant difference in fees. And I asked one of my teachers in my second master's why there's a huge difference in the fees that government university is charging and private university is charging. He said that, for example, if a private university is charging 80K per semester and government university is charging 20K per semester for certain departments, this was the fees for computer science department, but other departments were very cheap. So the reason was the cost to this department is also 80K, but the government said you take 20K from the student and take the remaining 60K from us. This is subsidy. When provision at low cost becomes possible, then you are able to charge lower prices from the consumers. When consumers get something at a lower price, according to law of demand, when prices are low, demand increases, right? So in order to increase demand and help more people consume that good, it's important for the government to subsidize those goods and services, especially merit goods. Regulation and mandatory consumption. For example, if the government makes it mandatory that everybody has to be needs to have at least 10 years of school education, then people will have no other choice but to optimally consume merit goods. How merit goods are underconsumed? The examples are preventive health care. People might not fully understand long-term benefits of regular checkups and vaccination that might lead to underutilization of these services. These services do not exist in Pakistan, but in international economies they do, where people are actually forced to go for regular checkups. Education is another merit good. Individuals might not fully grasp the economic advantages of higher education, leading to lower enrollment rates than what is socially desirable, especially in the lower socio-economic groups. If you ask them, do you want to study or do you want your children to go to school, they will give a very simple answer. Why do they need to get educated? They can earn even without education because they are not aware of the benefits that they can reap from getting their children educated. This is below underconsumption is a detail of how underconsumption, imperfect information leads to underconsumption. Number one, lack of awareness, as I gave example of CAC 1000. Misunderstanding risks and benefits. It means people may misinterpret information about potential positive outcomes of consuming merit goods, underestimating its value. And the next is complexity. Complexity of information. In some cases, sometimes what happens is that people are unable to make sense of complex information, and if it's presented in a complex way, it makes it difficult for consumers to fully understand its advantages, and we end up saying all of this is a drama. It's just a tactic. It's just a buzzword. For example, working out and proper nutrition. We all listen to a lot of stuff about these things, but then we end up saying everything is a drama, right? Okay. Next type of goods is demerit goods. Demerit good is the opposite of merit good, and it harms society at large. Examples are cigarette smoking, consumption of alcohol, and consumption of tobacco-based products. These products are normally over-consumed. Why? Number one factor is because of its addictive nature. They are addictive in nature. And then we have inelasticity, price inelasticity of demand. It means because they are addictions, no matter what their price, people will consume it. It causes while merit good, it produces positive externality, demerit good produces negative externality, which means harmful effects on the society. Externality is borne by a third party who's not directly involved in consumption, selling, or production of demerit goods. For example, passive smoking. Somebody who is a passive smoker may encounter more diseases than the smoker themselves. Harmful impact is a negative externality. Imperfect information leads to overconsumption of demerit goods by lack of awareness, right? There can be lack of awareness about potential demerits of that good or potential harmful impacts of those goods, and market failure. Due to imperfect information, free market may not allocate demerit goods efficiently, resulting in situations where more of the good is consumed than it's considered socially optimal. For example, cigarettes. Government needs to intervene to reduce the use of demerit goods by imposing taxes, but taxes don't do a lot of goods from consumer side, because if the demand is price inelastic, it wouldn't make any impact or a significant impact on consumption even if the prices increase. But if taxes are imposed on the producers, then yes, there is a chance that production would come down. When production would come down, then cost would rise. When cost would rise, then there will be a significant increase in the price also. That might in some cases lead to reduction in consumption of demerit goods. Second step that the government takes is information campaign by creating awareness among the public about the potential harmful effects of demerit goods such as drugs, alcohols, and cigarette. Government runs campaigns to educate customers about harmful effects of demerit goods, attempting to improve information at all levels. So that is it about types of goods and classification of goods and services.